wasn't there. He'd only played 28 or 29. My point is you've got to find – that's why I keep saying the word different. Because it might not be somebody that jumps off the page. You're like, that guy played in, like I brought up the list of names. If it's Merzlikins in Columbus, he's been buried there. Like, can he play? I don't know. Is he going to look different in Edmonton? I'm sure they've got 3 or 4 goaltenders that'll circle that might not jump off the page for us. But you're going, okay, let's see. Give him a chance. Let's see what he looks like behind that team that can either play tight or outscore their issues and I think a change of pace might be different. Like, you're right, Brian. They're not bringing in a Vezina winner because I just don't see anybody available.
Well, no, and there's very few goalies that fit that description anymore anyway. It's like a true number one stud. There's 7, 8, 10 of them in the league. So it's not a reality, and yet it's on Bowman and company to find someone that's more than just adequate, that's good enough to steal some games and win games and avoid the collapses that we've seen. But there's a lot of action already in the league where Jonathan Toews today signs in Winnipeg, a 1-year deal, and it's about a $2.5 million base with a bunch of bonuses that would carry over to the next season. But it's a great story. Like, it's a great story that the great Jonathan Toews, who could have never played another game again the rest of his life and gone right into the Hall of Fame. His number will be retired. He's probably a statue guy in Chicago, I would think.
Oh, big time, yeah. Stays
within the division, goes to his hometown, a very good team in Winnipeg that opens the door. Like, Scheifele will be their 1C. And then, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can ask Toews to be your number 2 guy immediately. No. I think the hope is at some point he can get there. It may not be attainable. It's completely unknown what he's going to look like.
By January, you're hoping that he could be the 2 guy.
That's kind of what you're hoping for. And Lowry's a perfect number 3. You move Namestnikov back to the wing, I think, and maybe there's Ehlers walks and, whatever it's going to be. But if you've got Jonathan Toews, like, just in terms of a feel-good story, which doesn't add to the win-loss column, but it's a great story. If you're a Jets fan today, it's just got to be one of the coolest things ever. Like, local guy, hero growing up, world junior hero, absolutely tormented the division forever as the captain of the Blackhawks when they were at their height. Hasn't played in a few years. Don't know what he's got left, 37 years old. 1-year deal. Yes, it's a lot of money if he hits all the bonuses, but that carries over to the next year. And the Jets rarely, if ever, spend to the cap. So, they're going to have, even if they got to own some of the bonuses, I don't think it's going to be an issue for them. I think it's a really good play. And I'm really curious to see what he's got. Because how many times did we talk about Jonathan Toews on our show 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago? I mean, this guy, he was the man. And it was him and Sid for the longest time. Like, even Ovi, it was a three-peat. It was a three-pack of players.
He was so good that people would talk, like, would you take him? We've had all the crazy discussions. Like, is it him or is it Sid? Which one would you take? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was that close where people were like, God, it's a tough call on which guy. One guy's more dynamic offensively, but the other guy is so good in the playoffs, so responsible, matchup guy, clutch. And it's like there was showtime, but Jonathan Toews, man, he scored some unbelievable goals for the Blackhawks in big moments.
Leader.
Yeah. That guy was so good. Well, the problem is, guys, it's just like Patrick Kane. We're talking 10, 11 years ago. Like, what is it? What is the product right now? Because if you think it's just going to be Jonathan Toews of Mr. Serious with the C on in Chicago, it ain't him right now.
Yeah.
No, and that's where I'm not sure you can. It might be ambitious to pencil him in as your number 2 center. Like, he may have to start on the 4th line and ease him in. And play 10 minutes, 11 minutes, and then who knows? And then who knows? But it's definitely worth a flyer on the guy.
100%.
Absolutely.
You're going to give him a shot.
You also mentioned the bonuses. If he achieves all of them, that means he had a good year. That means he played a bunch of games that probably contributed, all of that type of stuff. If he only plays half the games, then he stays in the 4 million range type of thing. But I look at it, I think it's a flyer. He's familiar with the city, knows it, obviously has a relationship with people around there. I think it's a terrific signing, and you're right. Like, he's going to decide where he's going to play in that lineup by how fresh he is, how quickly he can get up to game speed, how his game will translate to today's game. Let's not forget, like, he's not 28 anymore. So he, by the end, the end is the wrong word, but by the time he stopped playing, Father Time was catching up to him. So he's got to adapt his game a little bit into today's game, which is more of a young person's game.
Yeah, well, and that's true, too. Like, he obviously had some struggles health-wise, and by the end, Chicago was done.
Right.
And, yeah, he was not the same player, and he won't be. And I guess that's what we're saying. Like,
right.
Even asking him to be the second-line center by midseason may just simply be too ambitious.
Right.
And he may just be a fourth-line depth guy. Anything's
That's
on
a
the
reality.
table.
That could,
that
could
be
happen.
anything. It could he shows up and he just can't get back going again. That's possible, too. I doubt it. Right. I'm sure he's in incredible shape, and clearly Winnipeg's done their due diligence, and it's been reported on for a while. He's been skating for a long time. Like, I'm sure he's ready to go and ready to play. But it is a wide chasm here in terms of the possibilities of what Taves looks like. But just the idea of him being in a Canadian market, being in Winnipeg, the season that they had last year, it's a great start to the offseason for them. And, that's what's going to be interesting with all these Canadian teams moving forward is, we joke about a DNA change and a different voice. And
we said yesterday we're not saying DNA
I
anymore.
Understand, but, Taves walks in there, and if he's playing every night, that takes a load off Scheifele. It takes a load off Lowry. And I'm curious where the Leafs are going to go from here. Like, everyone's connecting Brad Marchand to the Leafs, right? That's the guy. He's got to come up here. You just got to pay him. You got to get him in here. Partially because of how well he's played, partially because he's been a winner, because of what he's done to the Leafs. But there's also an element of his personality and his approach and the way he sees the world and the way that he interacts with people. And, you put him in a room like the Leafs room, Matthews is a quiet guy, like outwardly. I don't know what he's like behind the scenes, but, he talks to the media, he does his thing, but he's not a big personality.
It's just the same as Brian McCabe described as Barkov.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like Barkey's a quiet guy. He's a great leader, leads by example on the ice. But they brought in Matthew Tkachuk, and he absorbed a lot of the kind of raw kind of leadership type of stuff.
Yep. And I think Marchand could really benefit from that, or the Leafs could really benefit from Marchand being here to do that. But you got to let him be free. You got to let him be himself.
I know, but you know how the deal goes, guys. It wouldn't be Brad Marchand, the guy that's scoring a zillion goals on the third line. It would be opening lineup. He'd be on Austin Matthews left wing, and it's like, you're a first-line left winger now. And then all of a sudden it turns into disappointment. Where's the Brad Marchand? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
it's a perfect situation in Florida. Like, listen, there's a Taves comparison, not as extreme, but it's possible Marchand just played like that's the best it's going to be, and it popped, and that was his encore, and it was an incredible one. 3 months in Florida, wins a cup, third line, perfectly situated, and there's a Patrick Marleau element to this. Totally different player, totally different approach and personality. But Marleau, it was 37. Bring him up here, give him a lot of money, 3 years, and 2 years in, you're like, they're in big trouble here. Got to get out from underneath this. You know, and the same thing could apply here with Marchand. Like, wherever he goes, not just in Toronto, wherever he goes, there's a risk with a 37-year-old that just played great on an unbelievable team.
So you wouldn't give him 4 years at $8 million? That's what he's looking for, by my understanding, right?
Yeah, that's not what's being reported. Is obviously he's going to ask for as much as he can get. Of course he will, and he should. Doesn't mean every other team will give it to him. I don't know, Noodles. Like,
I think you got to be careful with it.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
commitment.
So how do you listen? I'm just Mr. Hypothetical
totally
right now. So if I'm saying we're talking about what he can bring, a lot of intangibles, and believe me, I think he was so instrumental in Florida winning a Stanley Cup, just because his injection of life, him stabilizing that third line with Listerinen and Lundell, like those guys were just unbelievable. His personality, he settles right in. I think there's a lot of things. It was the perfect storm, perfect mix. So if you're looking to add or change we brought that word up, he is a guy that would check all the boxes. But again, You work in a salary cap era. And, if term is the currency and you're trying to get the number down, yeah, maybe he might not play till he's 41. But if you want him in and you think there's a window right now, which there is for 8 or 9 teams, Leafs being one of them, would you pay the $8 million for him? That's my question. And then let the
ultimate question, man.
Well, but it's a fair question if you're trying to get better and if you're trying to change. Now, he's not going to play left wing. That's Matthew Knies' spot right now on that top line. But could he be your second line left wing? There's that spot is wide open for me. Bobby McMahon, I think, had a chance. I think McMahon is better served as a top 9. I don't see him as a top 6 personally. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think if there's an appetite, now he might just announce that he's re-signed in Florida. Who knows? Like, it sounds like they're going to try and get everybody done. I don't know what that's going to look like, but if it's a reality or if Toronto's looking at him, you have to brace yourself that what we might be looking at.
Yeah, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. I mean, from my standpoint, like just from an entertainment standpoint, I would love to see him in this market. I think it would be incredible to watch him perform, to watch him handle everyone, be right in the middle of everything. And I do think he would have a massive, massive benefit on Matthews, and if Tavares is still here, Nylander, guys who are just kind of stiff with the media or short with the media. Let Marchand go out there and talk. Let him be the personality of the team, and he can still play, and he has to play. It can't just be about the intangible check boxes. He's got to be able to play, but this is, I think, what the whole league is risking here is you're chasing Florida, and like Florida did it. Florida got him when you were supposed to get him, right? Like Florida got him for one run at $5 million, and they picked up Sam Bennett when he was making $4.2 million. Yeah. Like that's
dream scenarios.
Exactly. And now everyone's like, oh, I want Ekblad, I'll give him 9, and I want Marchand, I'll give him 8. It's like, okay, well then you're probably not going to be Florida.
I know.
If you do all that.
That's the thing. You're going to get him, but you're not getting the same one because the number's way different.
Exactly. And that's the
that's what I meant about the first line
thing that you got to consider.
Yeah, if you got a great third line and you want to bring him in for the right number, but if you want to pay him 8 and then there's a big commitment financially and there's 4 years, then all of a sudden, excuse me, he's your first line left winger, and it's like that wasn't the point of the exercise.
Right. Exactly. No, and that's what they're going to have to figure out. And he's got to get there first. He's got to show interest in the Leafs first, but if all that happens and the number is $32 million or whatever, I would guess the Leafs will give it to him. Like, that would be my guess. They probably would, and I think it would be celebrated. Again, it would be a lot of fun, but he's not Marleau. But there's comparisons on.
Well, different players and all of that.
I know, but Marleau. Remember, it was the third. You're like, this third year is killing him at 6'5". Why did they do this? They weren't.
Yeah.
It was like, was it that important where you had to say yes to the third year?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they did it.
And they did, and they paid for it.
These guys are on a boat. Like Marchand, if you look at his Instagram right now, like 50 minutes ago, it's him and Bennett, and he goes, "Where are we effing going?" Like he's got a question mark around it. And they're sitting on a boat at a bar. Like they're having a time. But he's certainly trolling and he's having a lot of fun. But it's just basically like, hey, Sam, where are we going? Well, Sam Bennett last night announced he was staying, didn't he? I mean, did you see that?
Yeah, I don't know.
He did the old Leo DiCaprio. He was like, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure he's not. I mean, I'm sure his agent and the Panthers are already working something out. I mean, I don't think anyone expects Sam Bennett to go anywhere. It could happen, but it would seem shocking at this point.
The weirdest thing, guys, now because of social media, in real time you're watching them party. You're literally watching them enjoying themselves because they're posting it, or fans are posting it saying these guys are in one at the table next to me type of thing. So it's, you want to.
When do they tap out though?
Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, I never got to win a Stanley Cup, so I don't know. There's great stories. We've told some too. That Sean Podine wore his gear for 24 hours Took his skates off and wore his whole gear right to the bar, right to everything for 24 hours. Helmet,
Probably like 4 or
everything.
5 days, and they're like, that's
enough.
tapping out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, probably their wife and kids are like, hey, you got to come home at any point and see the kids, and
Well, that's always what I find interesting now that I'm older and all that. Like, if you're Marchand, it's like you got a wife and kids. If you're 23 and single, you're like, I'm going for weeks. Where are we going next? Europe, Vegas? At some point, the married guys are like, I have to stop now. Like, this is time.
Yeah.
For
Who's
me
to say the young single guys? Give me the cup. We're getting a private bird. We're going to Italy for Lake Como for a week with the cup. Like, I don't care what anybody says.
Young single guy has a different timeline than older married guy with kids. I think that's
so true.
Everyone understands that. All right, week 3 of the CFL on TSN. Our boy Luke Wilson. Argos Rough Riders tonight. Borderline must win for the Argos. They're 0-2. The Riders are 2-0. They're coming in hot. We're going to get Luke. We'll put a quarter in him and just say, what's going on? Give us a primer here. Give us a primer. And we're getting closer to camps opening up in the NFL as well. We're almost into July, man. By this time next month, it's basically all fired up. Like, we're going to be at the Hall of Fame game in like a month. It's a beautiful thing.
We also have a Game 7, too.
And we have a Game 7. And I got to give full credit to Indiana, man. Like, Indiana, they fight, and they showed up. And Halliburton fighting through injury, and he played great last night. Siakam was unreal.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma City, they looked like they just weren't ready for the moment. And now we got a Game 7, which you can't ask for anything better. Game 7 with the Larry O'Brien in the building.
How many times, though, have you seen the team that gets crushed like that? They just go home and smoke the other team.
Yes.
Yeah,
well, that's
fair.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Denver series, it was like that. I think Denver, I believe, won big Game 6. Then went to Oklahoma City on like a Sunday afternoon, and the Thunder just absolutely smacked them around. And naturally, Oklahoma City's a pretty heavy favorite, but that's why they play the games, man. Once you get to a winner-take-all, Indiana, they're in it, man. It's been a great NBA Finals. It's been a great series. Jays with the White Sox in town tonight. We'll get to that as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Mike Johnson in about a half an hour. And the Jays with the White Sox in town tonight. Beautiful night, dome open type of night. And it'll be packed downtown because the Argos are at home playing the Rough Riders tonight. And the Argos are not off to a good start. Not off to a good start. And it sounds as if our main man, Luke Wilson, will be making an appearance on the sideline tonight.
Should be. He's been awesome.
Is he going to bike to the game?
That's a great question. I don't see why not.
So that video with him on his bike and he says, "Hey, Partsy," is that you filming that?
Me? You think
I thought
I'm
that
out
was
there
you,
biking
O-Dog.
with him? No.
No, I thought he
that
was.
was
I
you.
thought you were in a car. Somebody was
No.
filming him on a bike, and I was like, I thought that was the day you saw him in your car.
No, dude. I don't know who that was. That he's got a whole camera
He's
crew
got
with him.
cronies.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got cronies, and maybe it was Al's brother.
I
don't know.
thought that was you, O-Dog. I swear. People were like, and Luke Wilson up for a bike ride. I thought that was you filming. I
You
swear
think
to God.
O's jumping on a bike in the middle of
Look at this one.
nowhere?
He goes, "Hey, Partsy."
That's
hey,
what I
mean,
thought.
maybe he was talking to me, but I ain't on a bike. Yeah, it's a guy on a bike. I thought it was Hayes in
I
his
thought it
car.
was you.
Dude, it's
No.
not me, man. I don't bike. I drive. Here's Luke
Yes.
Wilson of the CFL on TSN. What's up with the camera crew? You wheeling around, and are you going to bike down to BMO tonight?
Okay. Let's get some things clear here, right? I need to be very honest. There's some different categories of cyclists. First and foremost, there's your city riders, which is not me, and those are the bane of everyone's existence, including my. The sixth part, see, don't let Hayes try and paint me in a bad light. I am not around the car, 2 or 3 cars. I'm biking around. I'm not causing any traffic issues. I will admit, the one time I was doing something a little shady, which had something to do with what Frankie was saying with the app. Of course, I saw this car coming. I'm like, if I keep going, I'm about to be T-boned. And it happened to be Hayes the fraud. That was just a bad bounce for me.
Yeah, Parts. I was thinking.
Yeah, we got to maybe call him
get a
back.
clean
'cause
line.
Yeah, throw him on hold, dude. We got to try to get him back. He might be down at BMO, or maybe he's biking. I don't know. He's probably at the Scarborough Bluffs right now.
He's got a lot on his chest, though, and I need to ask him. He somehow is now that he's ingrained in the CFL. He's taken a run at people online too, like reporters and stuff from the CFL. I saw it week 2 numpty CFL / fans people rankings.
What does that even mean, numpty?
I don't know. I need clarification of all these guys he's taking runs at, because some of them are actually huge CFL people. Some of them work for TSN. He's really taking a run at everybody. I don't know what the numpty means in that. We'll need clarification once we let him get stuff off his chest.
Okay, I think we got you back. Hopefully we can hear you this time.
I'm live, boys.
Go ahead. All right, go ahead. Continue.
So, anyways, I just want to say that I think it's better than going to Planet Fitness. I can only imagine Hayes' routine there. It's a nice bike ride. I'll put some tunes on, and then I go to the golf course after. It's a good day to be a retired athlete. That's all, Bart. So you don't let this guy paint me in a fraudulent light.
All
Well,
right.
Partsy, what I was going to say is I was thinking before the NFL kicks off, yourself, myself, Hazy B, and Al's brother all get on the short track and do a race on a bike.
I would absolutely love that.
a 2-seater, me and Al's brother on a 4-wheeler.
You guys got on a combo bike on a short track? Oh, my God.
Like the Ryan brothers. Wasn't it Rex Ryan and his brother?
Yes. Me and Al's brother just motoring. Yeah, we can make that happen. If he's not on a cruise, like the guy literally was on a cruise last week. All right, so Noodles brought up what's going on with you online. You're keeping people in check. The CFL community. How have they embraced your new role on the CFL on TSN?
I think most of the fans are pretty excited about it. You know, I try and bring a little bit of a excitement / football eye to it. But the CFL has some fan issues. Noodles, I heard you talking about the numpties.
Yes.
So it's been like this for the last 15 years. But you have this small group of pure idiots that know nothing about football. Okay, and to be honest with you, I don't even think they like football, but they
What
just
does numpties mean? Is that just a stupid name?
Yeah, it's just like a muppet, like a dummy. So I've basically taken upon myself to try and silence the numpties so that people in Canada can start going online and actually talking about the football game instead of every other thing under the sun that doesn't matter. Okay? And I also think that the CFL has embraced these numpties to a degree, and somehow we've got these strange rules. Like, I thought Dave Naylor wrote a great piece the other day about there's like designated Americans that are considered nationalized because they played 5 years. Like, who came up with this idea? Who did? Not me. I'll tell you that for free, boys. So there's a lot of things I'm chipping away at here. But the good news is there's some really good players in this league, and I do think they've got some talent. But there are some issues when it comes to the coaching and the implementation of what these guys are trying to do. But that'll all come to light very soon, boys. I'm on a crusade to get it out of CFL. We're going to improve the game. That's what we're going to do.
Okay. Well, in terms of improving the Argos' chances of salvaging this season, tonight seems like a pretty big game. They're 0-2. They're at home. The Riders are 2-0. Like, what is going on with the Argos? What are you seeing on tape that would suggest that maybe they break out tonight, or maybe do you think they won't break out tonight?
No, they're in for tough sled tonight. Saskatchewan's offensive line is very stout, and they come downhill. They run the ball very well. And the Argos are beat up, but also they do a lot of things where they shoot themselves in the foot. You know, and I don't understand the one thing I will be the first guy to tell you, I don't quite get the dynamics of the CFL when it comes to off-season moves, but it seems like Toronto basically shipped off all of their best defensive guys, and they're paying for that, and they're banged up, and not having Chad Kelly is another huge ordeal, because I think Kelly can sling it a little better than Arbuckle can. And across the board, there's just a lot of issues. You know, week one, I was there when they lost to Montreal. They had a very hard time picking up Montreal's front seven and all the different looks they give, which is fair. Montreal brings a lot of different looks. Last week, it didn't really get much better. They don't execute on offense. They don't play great defense. Again, you never know. It's a CFL, but they're gonna need to really. The margin of error is very small for them to pull out a win today.
Yeah, that's not something Argo fans want to hear. But it's a long season, and the East is the inferior division. Which is a part of it as well. I mean, you still have a long way to go. Historically, the Argos, I think, have always kind of looked at it like be alive, as close to above water as you can by Labor Day, and you can still get in the dance. Chad Kelly and what's going on with him, and him recovering from injuries, I guess that's pretty significant, right? You mentioned it; they're pretty banged up, but we'll see. I guess we'll see what comes of it tonight. All right, so how are you getting down there? Did you establish that yet? Are you driving down? Are you biking down? What's your plan for?
No biking.
Okay.
No biking. I'm currently sitting in a car right now, heading down there. Boy,
Okay.
Are you coming to the game tonight? Big night in Toronto?
No, I don't think any of us are going to be.
I
down
should,
there.
but
I would have loved it, Partsy, if they just right in the broadcast, you just wheeled in a Pee Wee Herman bike like you were a little bit late, and you just wheeled by the coach and just set up shot in the sidelines with your microphone.
Yeah, dap up Dinwiddie on the way by and just park that bad boy.
Get us down there on a weekend, and we'll stand beside you, and we'll chew the fat during the game.
yeah.
Listen, I'm thinking, Partsy, next weekend at Friday night is Hamilton. I think we should all go. Listen, everyone loves a good time in the Hammer. It's going to be a bit of a rough crowd, and a lot of the Ticats fans hate me because I've been absolutely out of my mind online. So if you're down, I would love the company next Friday.
Okay.
Wow.
Let's put it in the calendar. I love it. Battle of Southern Ontario. I cannot wait. All right, pal. Well, good luck tonight. We'll be watching you on TSN. It's going to be a fun one.
Appreciate it, boys.
There he is, Luke Wilson, who will be back
Partsy.
with us, throughout the summer, of course, and into the fall with the NFL resuming soon. But, yeah, he's putting in work. CFL on TSN. Starting up again tonight, week 3.
I went to a few Argos games last year. My son loves it, and we had great seats, and it's a great setup there at BMO. Like, the biggest challenge is if there's something else going on there. because I feel like Expo or there was something like it was crazy.
Well, the X,
parking.
by the end of
X was-
August, it's a gong show. And
that's
if the
what it
Budweiser
was.
stage is planned too.
Yeah.
Like if there's something big going on, at the amphitheater, you're in.
I swear
big
there was
trouble
like a
trying to get
triple
there.
header. It was like the Argos, the X, and you're right, something at Budweiser. Like the parking was outrageous. So
Yeah.
I dropped the family off, and then I had to park like a mile away and ran it back in. But once he got in there, it was a great setup.
It's a great
Loved it.
stadium. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a great stadium.
really
and,
is.
the World Cup will be there in less than a year, man. Like
Yeah.
we're right around the corner from the World Cup, and this stuff with Jesse Marsh. The report today, I think Shinetti may join us later, is because
He
he's
was yelling
suspended.
at someone.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like he was directed to some box where someone screwed up. Wasn't him. They said, all right, you're in here tonight, because you're suspended. And then they circled back and said, oh, sorry, you're not allowed in here. And then I guess, maybe he was bent out of shape based on that.
Chewing
But what was
somebody
he
up.
suspended for?
Well, his antics, like he was going at refs, and he's been very outspoken. He's been very critical of officiating, of kind of supporting Canada, I guess, in terms of the way he feels they get officiated, or the way CONCACAF or what have you has handled them in the past. Like there's been somewhat of I wouldn't call it an inferiority complex with the Canadian Soccer Association, but concern that Canada gets treated differently than other big countries, which is probably accurate. And I think Marsh has come in and tried to fight back on that, and he was going nuts, and he got kicked out of the game. Remember, he got kicked out the last time they played. So we had him on. We're like, what was it like? You went upstairs, you were watching the rest of the match. He's kind of run into it a couple of times, and
He runs hot, though, eh?
he must have. I have a feeling I know what went down here.
You think he got in somebody's grill?
I think someone, this was my opinion, may I circle back and said, actually, Jesse, really sorry, but you got to go here. And Jesse was not in the mood for that, and possibly had a comment or two, and then that got back up the chain, and here we go with the review process. So.
You know who he looks like? Who's that chef that yells at everybody?
Oh, Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah,
he does have a bit of Gordon Ramsay.
He's got a Gordon Ramsay vibe. Like, I don't know, without knowing him, and that's unfair for me to say.
He's
but
an
he's
awesome
got that
guy.
Look.
Like,
yeah, well, we've had him on.
We've met him a couple times.
Yeah,
like
he's
in the
awesome.
studio,
But he's got like this vibe that he runs hot, which hot also means ultra competitive. Like, I don't mind that. I don't mind a guy that's especially when it's he's got skin in the game. Like obviously he's going to be on edge. So. But he does have a Gordon Ramsay vibe.
Yeah, he does kind of look like Gordon Ramsay.
I don't know. Maybe
he is
that's
an American Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, kind of love it, though.
Because some of the Gordon Ramsay stuff is just crazy to hear that guy. And I never could understand. Like, he wasn't doing that within his private restaurants and kitchens.
I have no
because
idea.
I get it's for TV, and that's what makes him. He's great at TV because he yells and screams and calls people morons.
Yeah,
you couldn't do that
No.
at Gordon Ramsay's steakhouse in London, and people are sitting there eating, and this guy's yelling in the back,
screaming.
That stuff's all made for TV.
It has to be.
It has to be. But there's that one where he's like got the two pieces of bread in the lady's head, and he's like,
"You're an idiot sandwich."
Idiot sandwich.
You're an idiot sandwich.
I was
That's
like,
a classic.
Yeah, that's a great meme.
That's his soundbite.
When you get hit with one of those, it hurts. I've been hit with the idiot sandwich meme after a bad tweet or whatever. I'm like, that one hurt. That was a good one. It was well played. Jesse Marsh. He's got a Gordon Ramsay vibe. All right, Mike Johnson. In about 20 minutes. Sam Mitchell coming up. Sammy was there in Indiana last night. Get his take on what he saw up close and personal, and what he thinks will happen in a couple of nights for Game 7 back in Oklahoma City. And the Jays back in action with the White Sox in town starting tonight. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050, and on the iHeartRadio app.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Mike Johnson coming up in about 15 minutes. Sam Mitchell, Matthew Giannetti still to come. Our best bets, Dear Hazy B, later this afternoon. Where I have a feeling people are going to be asking for ideas or life hacks on how to avoid the heat, because the heat is en route, man. It is going to get hot this weekend, man. They're saying it may feel like 40, 41, 42.
Really?
Yeah, by Sunday, Monday.
41 or 42?
That's what I've heard through the grapevine. Yeah, that's what I've heard with humidity and stuff. And that's when you get, like, the true veteran knows you got to wear the proper clothing, right? You have to.
Especially if you're dragged into something that's like walking outdoors with the kids.
Yes.
Et cetera, et cetera.
You have to be very careful.
It
very
could get
careful.
really ugly.
Yeah. Like, the worst shade is gray, in my opinion. Like, you wear a light gray short. Eh? Yes, you're asking for a massive, massive trouble.
If you're a sweater and you throw on a light gray, tight khaki short, good night.
Was that Berman?
Well, yeah, Swami, I think, had that might have been a full khaki, dude. But
we need a picture of that. Wasn't there a full, like, it was?
I've never seen Swaz like that in my life.
Boomer had a meltdown that day.
Yeah. Boomer was not in a good place, man. It was hot, spicy, and they did him dirty because he was in the trap, and it was an unnecessary camera angle.
Hacking it around.
That was the worst part. I think it was like a chunk or a skull, like the golf shot. Because you can pull off Swaz if it's like, man, that was a great shot. You know what I mean? Like, I can handle that. Yeah, there it is. See, that's a light gray.
Yeah.
That's a light gray on the Swamp.
That is just dirty.
That's unnecessary. That's him putting right there. But there's another shot of him getting in and out of a bunker.
But Hayes, what the hell color is that guy supposed to wear?
That's got to be a dark navy.
Yeah,
dark
black
navy.
Or navy.
Yeah, it's got to be a dark navy, maybe a black. Black's a bit extreme, but like a dark navy, you can claim, hey, it's summer, a little bit of color. You know, you got to know better if you're Boomer there, man. You've got to know better. Look at this cat. Now he's got short. That's front Swaz, dude. That's tough.
Jesus.
Yeah, like frontal Swaz is wild behavior.
Yeah.
All right, Mike Johnson coming up. Dear Hazy B, continued a little bit later this afternoon. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
It's Mail It In Friday.
The plant called and said if you don't come in tomorrow, don't bother coming in Monday.
Woohoo! 4-day weekend.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We got Mike Johnson coming up here in a moment. Friday Night Football, CFL on TSN. We got Argos Rough Riders tonight. We got Canada back in action tomorrow. The Gold Cup. We got the Jays and White Sox starting tonight. Game 7 NBA Finals right around the corner. NHL Draft, free agency, guys getting traded, signed. Taves going to Winnipeg. Mason Marchman on his way to Seattle. Lots going on.
Dallas is taking care of some business. They have some signings and stuff. Traded Marchman. Like, they're trying to move and shake. It'll be interesting to see who they hire as a coach. We forget there's a vacancy available.
That's a very good point.
Who's out there?
Well, I was asked that. I think it was Jason Greger or Rashog asked at the Oilers presser, because there's been rumors of Glenn Gulletson, who maybe Dallas has some interest in, and Stan
Jamie,
Bowman
hasn't he already coached them once?
I think he has. I know for sure he coached in Calgary, and I coached with him in. He was the head coach of Vegas when they had an East Coast League team. He's a really good guy, really smart guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've heard his name bandied about, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if they recycle, if they go with the younger guy, if they go progressive, or maybe it's Lavi. Like, they've. Dallas is a very good team, but they've kind of hit the ceiling there too. They've got to push through it.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, it is crazy how the league is reacting to. It's like no one's happy but Florida. You're either the Panthers or everyone hates everything.
But it's true though. But that's fair.
I know, but there are limit. There should be like different stages, right?
You're right.
If you're the worst team in the league,
yeah, like,
then
somebody's
got
to be able to say that wasn't that bad,
right? Like, and I'm not here to tell you who that should be, whether it's Dallas or Toronto or Carolina or Edmonton or whatever, Tampa, Vegas. Like, but it seems like there's the Panthers who are partying and letting everyone know that they're going to party and that they own you and that they're the best and there's nothing you can do about it. And then 31 other teams who are just miserable and can't believe it.
Right.
And I'm using some hyperbole there clearly, but I've referenced this term a couple of times this week, like desperate GMs. And I what I mean by that is, like, you got the next 2 or 3 weeks to really make some moves, and the appropriate moves to put your team in a position where you're better than you were a month ago or a month and a half ago, and you're a really good team a month ago. Like the Leafs, like Dallas, Colorado, Edmonton, Colorado, Vegas. Like, these are perennial. Winnipeg clearly feels better about themselves today, signing Jonathan Taves. But
Colorado went out in the first round.
Yeah.
With that heater, what we all thought was a heater team.
First round.
Absolutely heater team. And they made significant changes. Significant. Yeah. Not just the Rantanen. 2 goaltenders. Mittelstadt out. Like, Brock Nelson in. Charlie Coyle. I mean, they are. I think they're positioned to be a very good team again. Anybody with McKinnon and Makar, you start there. But that team lost in the first round. Are they panicking? I don't know. I mean, they have won a cup. That's the difference.
There is a difference when you have that in your back pocket. That certainly helps, and I think it alleviates a lot of pressure from star players. That's a great way of phrasing it, I think, Noodles. You may have just hit the nail on the head. Not that those guys don't want to win again and aren't desperate to win. Of course they are. Right. But Nathan McKinnon can't really storm in and yell and scream at the front office the way maybe McDavid can. Now, McDavid, again, back-to-back Cup Finals, Game 7, Game 6, like right there. But there are a lot of superstars in this league that have not won. Yeah. Where if you're McKinnon and Makar, you have. If you're Jack Eichel and Mark Stone, you have. Yep. If you're Kucherov and Point and Hedman, you have. Obviously, if you're in Florida, you have. Right. But, Dallas, no one has there. No one has in Edmonton. No one has in Toronto. Relatively speaking. I'm talking the big boys, like the faces of the organization. And that's where the pressure, I think, lies the most for these GMs and what they're capable of doing over the next few weeks is they're looking at their players who are looking back at them saying, what are you going to do here?
Right.
How are you going to help me party like Barkov is right now, and Sam Reinhart, and party like McKinnon did back in the day? And here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's up, Johnny?
What's going on, boys? Now, is it me? Maybe it's the era we live in, but the Panthers are definitely, not that they're having a better time than any other winner, but they sure as heck are documenting their good time about as much as any other winner. Like, no holds barred language, inebriation. Not that there should be, but it's just we don't see that from teams that win as openly as what they're running through right now.
Carving the Oilers, carving individuals. They
just
are
taking
not
shots
holding.
At teams.
Oh yeah.
No, just whatever. I guess to the victors go the spoils, right? You win. You can say anything you want about anyone you want right now, and what are they going to say back to you? They can't say a thing.
Yeah, Johnny, were you aware, or I think Duthie tweeted out, I hope he was being serious, but about the trash talk on the ice, how he said that he had heard that it was the worst that's ever been done in the National Hockey League. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have. I talked to James about it, but I did hear it from other people unrelated to his tweet or whatever he said about it. Now, I find that hard to believe worst ever because, back in the 80s, things
I was
that were
just
said
going to
would
say.
be, you'd be put in jail for. So,
yes.
But apparently it was, it was, what it was beyond sort of the scope of the game. And the player,
Right.
it drifted into off-ice, family, kids, parents, whatever, that kind of stuff, which is unusual nowadays.
Yeah, that's where I think what they were saying for modern day, for what today, especially with the mics around, everything is a hot mic, right? So I think that's probably what they were, as far as context, Johnny, but because we've all been in dressing rooms and all been on the ice where there's been, you look back in a 2025 lens to some things that were said in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's just a no-fly zone now, right? Like that was everyday type of thing. So I think there's context to it, but it did sound like it got very personal where nothing was off limits, wives, girlfriends, you name it, money situation, all of that type of stuff. I think everything was on the table.
Who could you be alluding to when you say money situation?
Well, there's one, obviously.
But you know what, though? Yeah, I know. Obviously, Evander Kane declaring bankruptcy. But from what I gather, this has not been told to me by the teams, but I think the league or some league representative went and spoke to the team and said, hey, for that very reason, Noodles, the hot mics are going to pick this up. Like, you guys have to tell your players to tone it down, because if this gets out, and it's hard not to, some sort of behind the scenes thing gets leaked, it would not be a good look. I think people are generally pretty tolerant of the desire to win and the win at all cost mentality. We sometimes even admire that in our athletes, but some of the things that might have been being said were so over the line that it would turn people off. Like, what's the matter with these guys? Like, why are they saying these things to each other? And it went both ways. It was Edmonton to Florida, Florida to Edmonton. So no party was more guilty. But yeah, it was, but then you shake hands and it's all forgotten, I guess, right afterwards. And you don't have to worry about it. But that was sort of out there during the final, that this was the tone on the ice was pretty nasty.
Johnny, you just mentioned a guy before we get to the Oilers' other options and needs and what they were saying in their pressers. You just mentioned Evander Kane. Like, do you think they bring him back? Is he a UFA?
One more year.
Oh, he's got one more year.
Yeah.
Let's scratch that question from the
No,
docket.
but they might try to flip him.
Actually,
I think he's
they'll try
gone.
to flip him.
I think he's gone, to be honest, guy. I don't know how you feel, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's a topical question given what's happening right now. And I think
Well, that's what I meant.
yeah, I know it's what you meant. We interpreted it right. But Stan Bowman talked about, he likes his defensemen. He's got to change his forwards. He's got to change his goalies. He basically said it out loud. So when you're changing your forwards, that just not mean just bringing in UFAs and letting UFAs walk, but also, like, Victor Arvidsson has one more year on his deal. Evander Kane has one more year on his deal. Those two guys make $9 million between them. And if you're able to shed that salary, that opens up some things to be a little bit more creative. So
Evander Kane, it's funny because in game one of the final, he was really good. He had 9 hits, and he was in on a couple goals, and he's banging guys around the net and doing all the stuff that Evander Kane can do. He scored a goal early, and then the series wore on. He just sort of got further and further away from the score sheet and more onto the penalty box, and it just kind of got away from him. But I do think I think the Oilers will effort to trade Evander Kane. He makes 5-1-2-5. And if they can find a taker, he's got some modified no-trade protection. After the league, he can get a no-trade list, too. I think they do it. And given what Mason Marchment just went for, third and a fourth for 4.5, Evander Kane, when healthy as he's as good as Mason Marchment is as far as producing points and physicality and all the rest. So there should be a taker out there. At the very least, on an expiring contract, guys, if you're a team not making the playoffs, you trade for Evander Kane, you give up a 4th rounder, you take on his salary, you trade him for a 2nd or 1st at the deadline, and he can anticipate going on to a different team, and that's maybe one way you could flip picks and upgrade a little bit for just chewing up some salary.
Yeah, when he's healthy, he's a good player. And I know he took a lot of high-sticking penalties that drove people crazy. I get it. But, watch what you wish for. There's a Nazem Kadri comparison there. Like, he plays for keeps, and he's tough, and he's on his toes. And, if you're like, run him out because too many stupid penalties, we don't like that. If you replace him with a guy who doesn't have what it takes.
Get you Geno Malgin in there.
Exactly.
Well, I think what they're going to do, though, is say Trent Frederick will be a lower rent, and not as much offense as Evander Kane. I'm not saying that, but like physical guy, occasionally will drop the gloves, play with an edge, and make $1 million less for the next 8 years. So they would probably say that's the guy who's going to slide in there, so they can replace sort of what Evander Kane does. But the reality is, the Oilers need wingers again. Again, we talk about this over year.
Doesn't that make you think? Doesn't that make you think, Johnny? It's like you need wingers, and you're going to get rid of Evander Kane. Because other than the dumb penalties in the finals, it was always McDavid, Draisaitl, probably Hyman, and Kane was the next guy that was performance-wise their best guy. And you're going to move off that? Scary thought.
Yeah. Nugent Hopkins plays the wing, too.
Yeah. And Corey Perry at 40. I don't know how much you're going to get at him, but he was also very good. But that also, the fact he had a 40-year-old, as good as he was, playing on the first power play on the first line, speaks to the lack of depth. And Noodles, I wonder if Edmonton had their way and say, okay, we just lost to Barkov, Bennett, Lundell. We'd be pretty good with McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins. If we had 6 wingers to play with those guys, that's the difference. Florida's got the wingers. Edmonton does not.
I agree. And it's weird. Bowman said today that they like Frederick because he can play all 3 positions, and he's more comfortable on the right side as a left shot, but he's been wanting to play center. He's only 27, so, I mean, that's a guy I can see that they slide in there. But I also think RNH, if you could make him a third-line center, that's where, again, easier said than done. But I think they do package Kane and Arvidsson or any type of thing, and they're looking for either. Skinner goes away because he's unrestricted, and you're looking for players to help. I think they need one player. Struddy said it, and I don't disagree with him. They need somebody who has chemistry with Draisaitl, other than Nugent Hopkins. Like they need.
How do you know it's going to work, though, Jamie? You're saying, this guy probably would. We can look at the numbers, but if it doesn't work, you're kind of screwed.
But you still need a good player. If you go, and this is the wrong, and I'm not going to, but if Brian Rust, if you could get a Brian Rust, if you could get somebody like that, who can play top 6, straight line, can shoot the puck, keep up, and everything like that, then maybe that is his player to play with. Because Kasperi Kapanen, makes one good play out of 20. So that's not your guy. You
don't like Gino Podkolzin?
I like Podkolzin. I don't like him in a top 6.
No,
I think he's a heavy player, but I like him. But
I
give
Draisaitl a lot of credit for that. He was like, it was Podkolzin and Arvidsson some nights, and it was like the guy almost won the Hart Trophy. It's like, oh my God.
But that's what Johnny's talking about. They've got this Matt Savoy kid. They've got Noah Phillip. They've got some young kids that they've got to plug in and give them an opportunity too. But they also have to find a top 6 player to play with Draisaitl, and you got to go looking around the league for it. You do.
Yeah, they're not alone.
And Russ is not a terrible name, actually, because, the exodus out of Pittsburgh, I know he's got term on his deal, but Pittsburgh should be interesting because Pittsburgh's intentionally getting worse. They're stripping it down. So guys like Russ who make $5 million with a couple years left, if they can get picks or young prospects, they probably do stuff like that. And Russ might be the only guy in the Penguins. Check. I don't think he has trade protection. Everybody else on Pittsburgh has some sort of trade protection. Brian Russ doesn't have any, so you can send him anywhere, anytime.
Right.
We have Mike Johnson. All right, let's say we get to July 1st, and the Leafs have in front of them the exact same contract both players are willing to accept, but they're only going to keep one or take one. Brad Marchand or John Tavares? Who do you think they should take? Who do you think they would take?
And they have the exact same contract.
Let's say 4 years, $7 million. They're both like, I'll take it, and I'm coming up to Toronto.
Hey, I can't sign Brad Marchand to that contract until I know what the centerman. They need a centerman. So, positionally speaking, they need a centerman. So I'm like, don't sign Marchand, and if it's not going to be Tavares, don't sign him either. You save that money for a centerman. I'm taking the option C because Marchand on the wing, sure, he's a very good player. And of course he could play with Matthews and Matthew Nyes and be great. And he could probably pair up with Nylander and whoever and be really good. But right now the Leafs are devoid of a second-line center and probably a third-line center, right? And we just watched Bennett and Lundell, 2 and 3, win a second Stanley Cup in a row. Just crush people. Now, you're not going to get that kind of talent. You're not going to have that kind of success, but you need massive upgrades from, respectfully, if it's Lawton and Kampf. Or I don't even know who they even have, player X. Maybe it's Domi, Lawton, whatever. Yes. They need, so I would not sign anyone until I get a center straightened out.
Yeah,
okay.
It's fair. Johnny, do you think we're all focused on, Tavares, obviously, and what they're going to do, but would you think Tree would be proactive with some guys in this bottom 6 that have either term or at least a year left? I'm circling Domi, I'm circling Yarncroke, I'm circling Kampf. Again, I don't know what you would get for them, but just different looks, or would you be just more focused on trying to fill that second-line center and then build the team out after that?
Well, I imagine you can do both at the same time, right?
Right.
If you can get rid of those contracts. David Kampf has been a serviceable player and pretty reliable and does what he can. But $2.5 million for a fourth-line center who's not a great penalty killer, that's too much money.
Right.
And now those numbers may go up a little bit as the cap goes up. You may not be quite as pinched, but the Leafs are pinched. They're pinched up top, trying to round out their roster. So, if Kelly Yarncroke's going to be a fourth liner, you don't want $6, $7, $8 million on your fourth line. You just don't. You want $3 million, and that saves more money for the other guys who play a little bit more in a bigger role. So yes, if he can, Domi has trade protection, Kampf has trade protection, Yarncroke has trade protection. They all do. So, and they're not trading Scotty Lawton because he only makes $1.5 million. So, I think he will look to be aggressive and see if he can take advantage of teams with some cap space and maybe package stuff to get rid of those guys or move them along or one or two of them or whatever it might be, Noodles. But, it's not just the top, Marner and Tavares they need to replace. I think they want to shuffle the deck all the way down.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Now, there's only so much you can expect to happen. There's only so many players available, and other teams are willing to spend money. And, Mason Marchment was there. I guess you could have had him for a third and a fourth round pick, but Seattle got in first, or was willing to pay that price. Maybe the Leafs can't even afford that.
You know what, Hayes?
So many picks.
Not to go down this road. We don't want to get off topic here, but Dallas traded Mason Marchment to Seattle. That's what Washington is, Washington State. No state tax. And I think, just putting it out there, if you're a franchise who asks guys who take discounts because of your state tax situation and then you trade them to high tax locales, that's a bad look, right? So I wonder if that also may have factored in the Marchman thing. Like, listen, we're trying to do a solid by keeping the same no state tax jurisdictions.
Yeah. Could be the case. And if it is, the league would know it, and yet the league is going to turn a blind eye to it. You know? Because that's even more ridiculous. Like, you can't trade for a player because of where you live, you operate.
Well, I would just say this. Let's say, hey, okay, you want to sign somewhere. And I'm like, listen, Brian, come to Nashville. We'll give you $4 million a year. I know you can make 5 elsewhere, but 4 is the equivalent of 5. You're here. No, as a club, we don't give you no trade protection, but, you're going to be here. You're part of our future. We're not going to trade you. We're going to ask you to do this because financially it doesn't hit you, but we can't give you no trade. So you're doing a leap of faith, sacrificing $1 million, let's say. And then 2 years later, they say, you know what? Now we're going to trade you. Sorry about that leap of faith, and sorry about the $2 million we're costing you. In that sense, I would want to do right by you because I've asked you to do something and I didn't allow you to protect yourself for that sacrifice. I think if anyone asked me to take a state tax discount, I'm like, sure, give me a full no move. That's how it works. You get the discount, I get to know that I'm always playing here. And if you don't have that, I could see why teams might want to try to, support the player in that regard.
In the end here, I get it, Johnny, but in the end, like, this is the thing too. Like, this is a business. And, as a manager, I get that you try to take care of players, but sometimes there's no favors to be done. Like, I got to trade you and I got to move you out, and Team X is what it is. Marchman's a wonderful person, and Jim Nill's a great manager, and in this situation he does him a solid. But sometimes, listen, we gave you 4 years at $4 million. We gave you $16 million contract. It didn't work out, or we're moving on from you. Like, at some point you have to put your business hat on and say, I'm trading you, and you were traded or whatever. Like, that's the biggest thing. I see sometimes it's just, unless you've got no trade protection, you've got to work with the player. Sometimes it's like, yeah, we traded you. We got to move on.
Had to do it, sorry.
It's a business. Like, that's the thing. You're getting compensated a lot of money. I've been in that scenario. Johnny, I'm not sure. Oh, you've been in it. Johnny, I'm not sure if you were traded or if you just signed.
Hazy went from Barrie to Sarnia.
That's true.
That's right.
So we've all been traded.
I was traded 3 times. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I know it's a different generation, and I get it. But sometimes you got to put your business hat on and you do what's best for the organization, because Dallas was pressed up against the cap. They needed to move his money. So they did do him a solid. But in the end, if it wasn't going to be Seattle, it was going to be somebody else, because they had to dump him off the books technically, right?
Yeah, and it's more about the cap than anything else, and
right.
That's another thing. Like, if the player doesn't pull their weight, and that's not what happened with Marchman here necessarily, but then it's like, well, who cares about what, I paid you a lot of money. You haven't even played like a $4 million player. So what am I doing you a favor for? You didn't do me one. Like, that's a totally different conversation. Forget state tax. You got 4 goals, dude. I got to trade you.
Marchman had 22
No, I'm not saying Marchman. That's not what I'm saying in general, though. Like, the fact that this would apply across the board. At some point, it's like, well, actually, player X,
100%. Listen, I'm all about being cutthroat. I got no problems. I got no problem being ruthless. Absolutely not. Right. I'm just saying, as an organization, if your reputation is we ask for discounts for state tax reasons, we don't give no trade protection, then we kind of hurt your contract value because we trade you after we kind of said we wouldn't. That's not a great reputation to have.
No, I hear you. And those are things to be considered, for sure.
And if you can do it, great. If you can't, sorry, Mason Marchman, we're sending you to wherever. Montreal, the highest tax rate in the league. That's what you got to do. But if you can do a solid, you would.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I wonder where this is going, the state tax stuff, man.
I told you, man. Like,
going nowhere.
I mean in terms of the conversation. Like, what the next layer is, like the.
How can teams be competitive if they're like, no, I'm not on this no state tax, so it's like nobody wants to play. It's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as big a problem.
I think it's not a problem. Well, I think the way I'd sort of wrap my head around it, it only becomes a factor when you become good. It doesn't really help you that much to become good. What it does is helps you stay good. It helps you once you have Sam Reinhart come up, and you're like, you know what, we can get him for $2 million less than a high state tax place, and we'll give him a no move because he's earned it. Though that's like now what Florida's going through, now is when it becomes a more significant factor because it lets you stay good, more room, probably room for one extra high-end, one extra $10 million player per team.
And that's when you see 6 years in a row a Florida team in the finals, like that. To your point.
Yeah, because Tampa's been
now these guys will
really
eventually get old and they won't be good anymore, and then it won't, and the state tax won't matter nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, and I guess what I'm saying is like, what, does it continue to pop up with players making decisions in the future? College free agents. So they're like, I'm not going. Why would I go anywhere else? I can go to Florida and go to Texas, or I can go to,
but didn't Tampa just lose that Hobie Baker winner?
Oliver Moore.
Yeah,
Moore?
I mean, this guy doesn't want to sign with Tampa. They're having to
He's
trade
going back
him.
to Michigan State.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about it. I think, Johnny, you're bang on. It helps you when you're really good, because all of a sudden, like you say, you can squeeze in players. If you've got a program that people want to be a part of, hey, the tax, the weather, all of that adds into the bucket that you can add to it. So you can find an extra player. I'm not disagreeing that the tax is a conversation. But like I say, when I was with the Panthers in 2006, it wasn't that big of a deal. I'll be honest, because
when I was in Tampa, Noodles,
we weren't really good.
Big deal.
but in the end, you're right. If you're a good program and it gives you that competitive edge, which right now both those teams in Florida are top tier, so it's giving you a competitive edge, that's where people have a problem with it, and rightfully so.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, no one can argue against it that there are players on these teams that are – because we're going to hear it a ton in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, in Toronto, it would have to be this. What? How does – I get it for the real money for the player, but in terms of team building, the GMs have the exact same amount. The bold number is the bold number, and it's finite, and there's a cap to it.
The other side of the spectrum, though, too, is in Winnipeg it's got to be this, or in Ottawa it's got to be this, because you might have to pay cold weather tax or small market tax,
for sure.
right?
But this one's the positive side of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're right. There's negative ones. There's a lot of them where it's like, I'm not going here, not going there, don't want to do this. And let's face it, Canada in general is on checks that box for a lot of players.
It does.
A lot.
Right.
And let's be clear, a lot of Canadian players too, not just Americans.
Yep.
So a lot of Canadians are like, no way, I'm staying in the States, man. That's what I know, and I'm used to it now, and this is where I'm staying. So it's not just Americans who don't want to come up. There's Canadian kids they put on the jersey at the Olympics that are like, I'm not coming up. So it's not just Americans, but Canadians, Canadian markets face it. Smaller markets face it. Cold weather American market face. It's just a reality.
Yeah.
But this is what I was pointing out earlier in the week. It's probably going to get worse. Like with Atlanta's probably coming in again.
Yeah.
Houston's coming in, and they're going to get the Vegas rules. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just going to get more and more difficult because there's more and more southern, great weather, great tax teams coming.
Yep.
So
you're right.
It buckle up. I mean, and that's the nature of sports is you can't whine about it, even if it's true. You got to beat it. You got to find a way to beat it.
Yep.
That's it. That's exactly right. And as we said earlier, like as the cap continues to rise, some of those northern big market, big tax teams will have an advantage because they'll have more revenues. They can just pay more for players. They go all the way to the cap all the time, and some teams won't be able to or won't want to, and that may swing the extra 5-8% actual dollars back into neutral for these teams. So it's not a big deal, but we'll see. Like when Sam Bennett's saying I'm not going anywhere, Wolf of Wall Street style, and when Brad Marchand wants a new contract, like we'll see what their numbers come out with. We're all talking about $10 million for Sam Bennett somewhere in the league. When he signs for 7.5, we're like, what? Why would what's going on here? And like that will be part of the discussion. It's gonna have to be.
Yep, that is for sure. All right, Johnny. Well, we'll see what comes of it next week, man. There's news coming out basically every day, and what are we, 10 days away
from... How are we
from...
feeling about Taves? Are we excited about Jonathan Taves' comeback?
I am.
I'm
really
want
excited.
This guy to do well and feel healthy, and I love the fact to talk about the Winnipeg tax. There's a Winnipeg discount. Guy from Manitoba wants to play in Winnipeg as he's coming back.
awesome.
That's a good story.
That's
and
a great point.
If he's good,
Yep.
it
Big
fills
difference
such
maker.
a monstrous need for that team. Monstrous if he's good.
Well, what a story! Like in Winnipeg, it's Taves, it's his hometown. They're a good team, and he steps in there immediately, and it's just going to be so much buzz around him.
Oh,
And he'll be prepared for it because Chicago's a huge market and sports market and hockey market. When they were great, they were the kings of that city, and he spoke every day in a lot of media. So it's not going to be something he hasn't dealt with before. But you're right. I mean, he could have gone to Tampa, and
exactly.
he didn't.
And
right?
you know what? The other thing too, the biggest shock that we've had probably in the last couple calendar years is Hellebuck and Scheifele staying there. I mean, you remember,
Did they really
we all,
want to? Hellebuck didn't want to stay. He just didn't get the deal he wanted. Wasn't he like shopping himself around? He didn't get the contract he wanted. Then he came back to Winnipeg.
I think in the end, I don't know what the final story was, but I was 100% shocked that both of them signed extensions and stayed. Like there's just, we had talked about like, geez, Winnipeg might be in one. They might have to break up that core, all of that type of stuff. What's Kyle Connor going to do? What's Josh Morrissey going to do if these guys leave? And they stayed, and it was good for them, and they had a great season. So, Jonathan Toews adding into that, it's great for Winnipeg. I'm happy.
It's a great
for
story.
Him.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what. I hope he's got something left, Johnny. Like that's the thing. That's the great debate. Who knows?
2 years out, I guess the body doesn't have the miles on it, so he should feel refreshed. But late 30s, haven't played for a couple of years. That's not as great as he was. Mm-hmm. That's not the easiest thing to try to do.
No, it's got a Mario Lemieux type vibe to it almost. Like leaving the game and coming back.
He'll be flying his first 3 or 4 days at camp, and then the first regular season game, his legs will seize.
Yeah.
Along with his back.
Yes, everything. He'll get hit hard. It'll be like, what is going on here?
What am I doing?
But he's back. Yeah, it's a great story. All right, Johnny. Have yourself a weekend. We'll do it next week.
Have a good weekend.
There's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Drive the built-in Canada fuel-efficient, fun-to-drive Toyota RAV4. Gas or hybrid models available. Visit mapletoyota.com. Sam Mitchell in about a half an hour. Dear Hazy B coming up. Matthew Shinetti on what's going on with Jesse Marsh, a.k.a. Gordon Ramsay. Noodles is a new nickname for Jesse Marsh that we've applied to the head coach of the men's national team. Gold Cup continuing. Canada back in action tomorrow. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Mailed In Friday brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, a side, and a drink. And you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. Dear Hazy, be in about an hour. Sam Mitchell in half an hour. Matthew Shinetti coming up from the West Coast. Gold Cup continues. Best bet still to come. We got a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. 20th time in NBA Finals history. I was surprised by that. I don't know why, but
seems like a lot. Doesn't it?
It's a lot of Game 7s, man.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of Game 7s, and that it's basically the whole dance is there for the NBA now, right? And what's crazy is the NHL we're preparing, for possible fireworks, and there'll be some surprise trades. There are every single year. In the NBA, you just know the second the championship is handed out, all hell breaks loose. Oh, immediately. Yeah. Durant's getting traded. Giannis, we'll see what happens. And Ja Morant. There's just going to be a million names out there, and at least half of them will actually get flipped. It's bedlam every single offseason.
Isn't there always one or two guys that you never expected to?
Yes. Always.
Like the usual names, like the guys you just mentioned, but then there's a bombshell that drops where it was like, I can't believe that guy's changing teams.
Well, because in the NBA, they don't do no trade clauses. Like it's not a part of their program. They never have.
Right.
So, there's certain players that have enough power and clout that they basically have one because team's not going to trade them, or if you get traded somewhere, you're just not going to show up. Like that's kind of the way it works. Also, certain players are like, "Oh, that's great, you traded me. Good for you. I'm not showing up."
Wow. The Luka trade alone was insane.
Well, there's a perfect example of that. Luka was shell-shocked, could not believe it, and yet he had to pick up his stuff and move to L.A.
So,
I really do believe we talk. There's all these reports coming out, the next CBA and the NHL, and what they're going to investigate the long-term IR stuff. Okay, go for it.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea. Maybe deferred money all of a sudden is an issue. It never been around. Been around for a few contracts recently, and now we got to put a stop to it. Yet, putting an end to no trade clauses and no movement clauses never comes up.
Yeah.
And I get it from the player's perspective.
Yeah, they're going to say, we've had it for this long, and all of a sudden you're going to yank them. It would be like a deal breaker.
Well,
I totally get that. But if I'm the league, I would want – if you go to war about stuff, like Jerry's gone to war all the time.
Yeah.
He shut the league up for a year. And I don't get the impression the league cares one way or the other. I don't think – again, they only care about the money, and there's a certain amount of dollars, and it's chopped up 50-50. Do whatever you want. But it'd be way better for business, specifically in the offseason, if you just completely eradicated no trade clauses. Think of what the Leafs would do if just nobody had one.
Yes.
Alone, the Leafs.
I think you would have more movement, and movement would have happened sooner. That's the thing. And
yes.
But not just with the Leafs, throughout the league.
Of course.
I think you could do, again, it's easier said than done, but me sitting on my couch, armchair general manager or commissioner, I'd like to see contract terms shorter too as well, like 5 years max staying with the team. Like 5 years is the max term that you can give out. So Matthews, McDavid, all of them just sign the max 5 years, and we'll see what happens. I have no
problem with that either, Jamie. It's just eight is just such an unrealistic.
It creates turnover. 7 and 8. 7 is a free agent. 8 is to keep your own player. I'd like to see it 5 and 6 and whittle it down in as the CBAs continue to get renegotiated over the years, because that creates turnover. That creates confusion.
Yes. Now, teams now are saying, well, I need those years to lower the cap. Like we're back in that world where guys are getting 6-7 year deals so that they'll sign for $3 million, $4 million.
I agree, but as the cap continues to go up, maybe you'll see a guy that should be on a 2-year deal get a 4-year deal to stretch it out. Like if you had a 5-year max on deals, you would see. You're preaching to the choir, for sure. I know. I think that's what should be in the future. Again, I always lean towards giving guys, some sort of I guess, guarantee, because it is a tough sport. You don't want to see guys get injured and all of that type of stuff. But I think you could see a 5-6 type of thing. 5 as a free agent, 6 as you keep your own player. That would be unbelievable. And maybe modified no trade, like just to start off.
They're never going to – the PA is not going to give that up, I don't think. And, again, I don't get the impression the league cares because that has nothing to do with money. So they don't care really, But it's gotten too carried away to the point where, like we just had Johnny on, Yarncroke, Domi, and David Kampf all have like some sort of no trade
for David
clause.
Kampf.
Imagine David Kampf, who didn't play in the playoffs, is like, no, actually, I won't be accepting that trade. Pulling up basically a Roger Dorn.
Yeah, like wouldn't you think he'd be excited to be like new fresh start? Like maybe I'm interested
and maybe
in
he
that.
would be.
He might. Yeah,
maybe
that's the thing. Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying. Like the point is, he could have some control about where he goes.
Yeah. Well, I always thought, Hayes, it's like a player like that. If you didn't give it to him when he say, I won't accept that 4-year contract at $4 million. Was that a deal breaker where he was like, no way in hell I'm taking that?
Exactly.
Because when he signed his contract, I'm like, how did he become like a need? Like, how did you need to get that done?
Well, I mean, I think
very good question in retrospect.
And what does he make? 2, off the top of your head?
I think it's more than that. Yeah, it's like 2.5 or so. It was like 4 years at 2.5 per or something. It's not crazy money, but
no, they're trying to keep the number down. Maybe he had a little leverage to get something with a 3 in it, and they're like, hey, we'd like to keep it at the 2, so we'll add a year or 2 type of thing. So that's, I would love to be a fly on the wall in that negotiation, because there's times where you're like, how did Pierre Engvall end up with 7 years at 3?
Got to lower the number down.
That's your case study, though.
Yes.
That's where you're like, if it was 5 years and you're like, no, it's got to be 7 or I'm not signing it. Like that's the one where it's like, okay, that one doesn't smell right for me.
No, I hear you. I hear you. But
in looking at it, the fascinating team for me, guess what it's going to be? This offseason, just offseason, and they didn't make the playoffs last year, and Hayes, you bag on them a lot.
Vancouver?
No, it's not. Maybe I got to narrow it because you do bag on it.
I do kind of I hammer away at them, and they missed.
It's the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, God. I don't even count them.
Well, but
they're not even in.
They're an interesting team because they've got some very good players. But what are you doing? Like, that's my point. Like, are they?
It's terrifying. Like that picture you guys all saw it circulating of Eichel and Reinhart and O'Reilly celebrating a goal on the same Sabres team.
Yeah.
And it's like Eichel went to Vegas, won.
Yeah.
Reinhart goes to Florida. O'Reilly goes to St. Louis. Like, that's what is terrifying, I think, if you're Kevin Adams. It's like, what if you trade J.J. Paterka and he's the next Sam Reinhart?
But you know what the scary thing is? Those
people in Buffalo think.
Oh, okay.
Those guys all on Buffalo, they still stunk.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I get it.
And that is the concern. Like, that is the thing, that when those guys were all there, it still didn't work. But it clearly wasn't the individual players. It was that everything else around them wasn't even close to good enough.
Right.
So, Buffalo, you're right, because now this Bowen Byram kid, he might get flipped to a third team in 3 years. Yeah. And where's he going? Because you got Power and you've got Dahlin, and now you might trade him. But what if he's – I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, Buffalo's intriguing, and they have some money. They have a difficult time, though, selling the program because they haven't made the playoffs in 14 years.
Right.
Right? You're in New York, state tax, not so great. Buffalo, weather, not so great. Yeah. Haven't won anything in forever. Tough pitch, man. It's a tough pitch.
And that's where – you look at it. They just got Josh Norris, who's 26. Tage Thompson's 27. And then you go down to their Krebs is 24. They've got this Benson kid. Ryan McLeod's 25. Benson's 20. Jack Quinn is 23. Paterka's 23. So they've got some young players there. But if you're trying to get better and grow, I wonder how active they are going to be in free agency, or are they going to try and move players for older guys to try and take a step? I don't know. Like, Kevin Adams is the guy there, but they just brought in from Columbus, Yarmo.
Oh, Yarmo.
Yeah, Yarmo.
Carolina to help out.
So it'd be interesting to see what Yarmo helps with that process. That's the team that I've circled to be like
you got the Buffalo
fascinating
Sabres.
case study for me. Like just
Okay.
to see what they're going to do with some really good young players, and then would you? I mean, Thompson's on a long-term deal. Tuck's got one more year. He's 29 years old. Right shot, big. Man,
From there, though,
Watch
right?
that
Think he's-
Thompson alone on the end of the season. You're like, how on earth are these guys not in the playoffs? He's like Mario out there.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
A couple years ago, he had a world-class season, like legit top 7 or 8 season in the league.
If you go to that NHL Edge and you look at the amount of times he shot the puck over 100 miles an hour, like for him, it's insane. Like he had the most, I believe, over the last couple of years because he's got an unreal shot, like slap shot, like he can bring it. But he didn't have a great start to the season last year. Came on, scored in the World Championships, so that gives him a little confidence there. But I've
Maybe it does. Yeah, I guess you're right. He scored the
Strutty.
gold medal winning game. He did.
Strutty,
It was a big. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to, I guess. Yeah, okay. I got a big
Spangler
goal
World
in the Worlds.
Championship.
All right, I'll give it
I'm
to
just
him.
saying, like
I hear you.
I like he's 27 years old.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
It just you can't keep moving past players. They move past Dylan Cousins. He's 24.
Yeah.
At some point you either keep guys or you move some of them to get older and try and push up in this Atlantic. But who's coming out there? That's a difference.
Well,
too.
that's that. Okay, listen, everyone's got to consider that. Like the Leafs, they got to continue to make the playoffs, and Tampa's got to keep making the playoffs, and because other teams are coming. Montreal made it.
Yep.
Ottawa made it. Sam Mitchell in 15. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Sam Mitchell, Matthew Shinetti, Jays, White Sox coming up. We've got our best bets as well. And don't forget, TSN 1050 wants to give you the ultimate iHeartRadio experience this summer at Osheaga Music and Arts Festival in Montreal. Just listen to TSN 1050 on the free iHeartRadio app for 10 minutes every day. Click enter when prompted, and you're in the draw. You'll see Olivia Rodrigo, the Killers, Gracie Abrams, and more with Gold Weekend passes. Plus, we'll hook you up with travel thanks to TripCentral.ca, a 4-night stay at the Montreal Marriott Chateau Champlain, and $500 spending money. Listen every day for more chances to win. Details at tsn1050.ca. We're looking at doing a little roadie maybe out to the East Coast this summer, which will be the first major car trip with the kids. We've done a lot of flying.
By car?
Yeah, we've done a lot of flying just to see the country. Just take your time, make your way out east. No plans.
Have you done BC, hiking
basically.
and all that yet? You've already done that one?
Have we gone west? Is that what you asked me?
Yeah.
No, we have not.
Okay, so you're starting out east. I love that. They're great for the picks because when you're growing up, you're like, when these guys were little, they saw the whole countryside. So do Newfoundland, all of it out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Newfoundland's a totally different beast because, to get out there, it's just a different, you got to
fly.
Yeah, or you got to get the ferry.
So you're talking Ottawa then?
No, I'm talking Montreal
Halifax.
through Quebec, through New Brunswick, get out to Halifax, exactly. Maybe pop up the PEI, that whole scene, man.
I can see one thing. You're driving, and the kids are acting up, and you're saying, you're yelling, turning around and yelling, don't make me turn this car around or pull over. That's the type of thing.
I can't wait for that. That's, I think, a rite of passage for every dad, right? You got to throw the threat in, even though everything's booked, and nothing could happen that would make you turn around. Nothing.
Yeah.
You are continuing to move east, but the threat will be out there. Probably by the time we get to Belleville, that'll be out.
Yes.
I would guess. Final hour coming up for the week. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
are guaranteed.
That's unbelievable tennis. What a day to have a center court ticket at Wimbledon.
And lifelong dreams
Performance for the ages.
become reality.
Major moment at the mountaintop.
Wimbledon on TSN with exclusive feeds on TSN Plus.
Again, yeah, it isn't a half day or anything like that.
This is OverDrive
It's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care.
with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Final hour for the week. OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Our best bets later this hour. Game 7 NBA Finals Sunday night back in Oklahoma City. And Sam Mitchell will join us here in a moment. Sam was down there in Indiana where, you know it's a blowout, and it was a blowout throughout the game when literally everyone available hit the floor last night.
Yeah.
Like the Pacers played 14 different, or Oklahoma City played 14 different guys, and I think Pacers played 13 different guys. And by the end, the bench is out. But that's huge because Halliburton was hurt, and he didn't have to play 40 minutes. Probably couldn't play 40 minutes.
Well, before every game, they're like, man, it doesn't look like this guy's going to play, and he kind of limps into the rink. And then this is awesome. It's like, is it like some kind of decoy where they're like, I don't know about this guy, and then all of a sudden he's awesome?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, Halliburton, they were saying he went for an MRI. Like he was legitimately banged up. But man, he looked good last night. Limited minutes, played 23 minutes, but he played well and put up numbers and was definitely a positive player for them. And Siakam had a night. They spread the wealth last night. Pacers played really well.
And now you don't play till Sunday.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you got a couple days to let it kind of heal up and whatever. And Game 7s are exciting. Anything can happen, but it's if it's predictable, isn't the NBA a lot of the home team wins a lot and that
home
type
court
of stuff?
Advantage is pretty significant, and with Oklahoma City in particular, they barely lose at home. Now the Pacers went in there, won game 1, right?
Yep.
Clearly, but weird splits with OKC throughout the playoffs. Like on the road, they just haven't been as strong as they have been at home. Yet, luckily for them, Game 7 is at home. It's in Oklahoma City. So, you're right. You got a couple of days off here. OKC would get home probably last night, if not today. It's a quick flight. And just, settle in, man, because you're not going to play a bigger game. I always say you can't treat a Game 6 like a Game 7.
Yeah.
You can treat a Game 7 like a Game 7. Like
Big
you can
time.
finally do that Sunday night.
Is there another 2-day break, or it's tomorrow?
Yeah.
No, it's Sunday night. They're off today. They're off tomorrow. Then they play Sunday night. So, and at this rate, I guess if you've gone this far, just why not? Game 7 I can wait for.
Yeah.
I got an issue between games 2 and 3. That's when it's like maybe just play. That one I don't know if I need 2 full off days. Game 7 I can build that up. That's got a Super Bowl vibe to it. I'm willing to wait for Game 7 on a Sunday night.
For sure.
Nothing wrong with that.
That'll be prime time too.
That'll be prime time. Yeah, that'll be prime time. That'll be go time on Sunday night. We got Sam coming up here. We've got Matthew Shinetti on. Jesse Marsh was speaking with the media today about this investigation into something happened up in that private box. And, he tried to downplay it and said it's a bigger story with the media than it is with us, and it's all good. But he's serving his second game of this 2-game suspension tomorrow, and then he's supposed to be back on the sideline. And as Shinetti pointed out, like if he gets suspended beyond this, that will leak into the World Cup.
That's what somebody tweeted today, and I'm like, this could be like trouble for World Cup. And I was like, what did this guy do?
No kidding. I guess, though, if you're already suspended, you're on the books. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only thing I can think of is, if the governing body's like, we kind of already warned you got to relax a little bit here, But that would be incredibly detrimental to him, to the program, to the buildup of the games. Like, the World Cup's a year away, and I don't know if this is going to happen, but if this investigation pops up and he gets another game or 2 or 3 and it goes into next year, man, like that's going to be like the BMO Field in Toronto, and the guy is going to be in the press box.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen for his sake.
In a hospital chair like that college football coach.
Yeah, exactly. Hugh Freeze or whatever that guy's name is.
There was also a junior coach in the Western League years ago, a guy named Brian Maxwell, who got suspended, I think, for like half a season for like altercation, pushed a ref or did something off the ice. And he would coach from a Winnebago. And so there was a coach on the bench who was wired to him in the Winnebago. So you could actually see the guy getting screamed at by Maxie was a gritty coach.
Yeah,
and he was
I would
yelling,
guess so. From a Winnebago in the Western League, I would say gritty is appropriate.
And he's yelling at him, guys. I think his name was Perry Shockey. He was yelling at him. You could see something happen, like Shockey would just be over the headset. And Maxie would be coaching the team from the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All
right, well, we'll see later in the hour what Matthew Shinetti can tell us about that. But the NBA Finals is going to 7 Sunday night, Oklahoma City. Here's our good friend Sam Mitchell, who was in the building last night. How you doing, Sam?
Doing good, guys. Just a little tired, but other than that, I'm doing good.
Yes. Okay, well, here we go, man. Game 7. Like, how would you describe the series so far? I mean, from my standpoint, it's been a great, great series. What have you made of it through 6 games so far?
I think it's been some of the best basketball that we've seen all year. I think these two teams, not OKC, but I think Indiana has surprised a lot of people by how complete they are. I think their depth, the coach Rick Carlisle has proven that, you know, everybody keeps talking about Eric Spoelstra, the best coach in the league, but I think we need to have that conversation here because tell me who has done more with less than Rick Carlisle. And remember now, Rick Carlisle, when he was in Dallas, he beat Eric Spoelstra in that LeBron James team. So I just think right now this is some good basketball, and I think Indiana has proven to people that they're a championship caliber team. Their defense is what's been wowing me. Their ability to defend and turn OKC over like OKC did to them early in this series. And it seems to me Rick has flipped the narrative. And I hope Game 7 is as good as we all anticipate it to be. I would hate to see a blowout.
Sam, do you think the Game 7 will continue with the trend that I just seem to see it a lot, where it's like the road team gets smoked in 6 and then they smoke the opposition the opposite way around at home? Do you see that happening?
I wouldn't think so in a Game 7 because so much is at stake. And then, you know, we always talk about how teams play different at home and on the road, and that's true. But this is different. I mean, we saw OKC in the closeout game against Denver. They just blew the doors off Denver. But this is for the NBA championship. Yeah. This is also a team that everyone thought that would win this series in 5. Everybody picked OKC in 5. Clearly, to me, they're the most talented team. But I think the equalizer has been Rick Carlisle and that bench. And if you ask me right now who is the MVP for the Indiana Pacers, I would probably say Pascal. But if Obi Toppin or T.J. McConnell go out there and have 25 points or something like that, and they win this game, we might be shocked who the MVP is.
Yeah, you're right, man. Toppin was great last night. That McConnell flies, Sam. I mean, he pushes.
Dude, he's tough.
Yeah, he's a big player. Tough. And I think that was what was significant about last night, the fact that the Pacers were in the driver's seat all night. Halliburton didn't have to play a lot. Like, I don't know what you saw out of Tyrese, you know, up close and personal, but he's clearly not 100%. But how significant do you think that is?
Last night.
Yeah.
I thought if he needed to play 35, 40 minutes, he could have last night. Obviously, it's good that he didn't have to. He gets another 2 days of rest. Only had to play 23 minutes. So he's going to be full tilt, ready to go, guys. So, again, OKC, all the pressure's on them. They were supposed to win this series. They're the most talented team. They got the best player in the NBA in shape. They got another top 10 guy in Jay Hill in the NBA on that 10. I'm going to say this, and I know people laugh, but in 2 to 3 years, Chet Holmgren may be the best player on that team because he possesses some physical attributes that the other guys just don't have.
So, Sam, what have you seen from Pascal Siakam throughout the whole playoffs and even, like you said, last night?
Just consistently being Pascal. You know, Pascal's he's not a guy that can go get you 40 if you need a 30 or 40 like Jay will. But Pascal's consistent. You know, every night he's getting you from 18 to 22 points. He's getting you 6 to 8 rebounds every night. He keeps the ball moving. The thing that I love about Pascal in this series is his defense. He's played some excellent defense. And as a matter of fact, to me, they've been at their best defensively when they moved Pascal at the center. He's been a better rim protector. He's a much better pick-and-roll defender, switching out, hard showing and getting back. So Pascal defense, to me, has just been lights out.
With Sam Mitchell. And from OKC's standpoint, Shea turned the ball over a lot last night. And, I'm curious.
Guys, Shea did not turn the ball over.
No?
They made him. They forced him into it. It ain't like Shea came out there. When people say that, they act like Shea just turned the ball over. That Indiana forced him into turnovers. Indiana made him turn the ball over. Every time he did something bad or got into a crowd, Indiana stripped him. Every time he went to the basket and tried to spin on that spin coming back, they sit the guy down to double team him every time he turns his back. So it's not just Shea just turning the ball over. Give Indiana credit. Indiana forced Shea into 8 turnovers.
Well, let's say they put him in similar positions on Sunday night. What happens? How does he change the outcome?
He's going to practice, and that's what Rick Carlisle them trying to do. Rick Carlisle, if I'm Indiana, look, we may lose this series. Game 7 at home, OKC is a good team, guys. They are really good. But guess what? I'm going to make everybody beat me besides Shea and Jay Will. I got to. I can sleep at night if Caruso and Dork and Hoosh and Chet or whoever else beat me. I can live with that. I can get on that plane, drink me a beer, and be okay with that. But if Shea gets 40 and Jay Will gets 30, I can't live with that. So I expect Indiana to do everything in their power to load up on those two guys. And again now, this can be dangerous because like last night in Indiana, Rose played a lot better and a lot more confident at home. But now this is different. This is for the NBA championship.
Yeah, this is as big as it gets, with Sam Mitchell. And, the youth of Oklahoma City has been talked about a lot, but it's been a benefit to them because look how great they've been. They've been outstanding all year. But who do you see having an advantage in a game like this where, neither team has really a lot of experience in this? Siakam's obviously won before. But do you see one team or the other, feeling more comfortable in a Game 7?
I would think because OKC was such a heavy favorite. Think about it. They had every time Vegas was picking them with double-digit wins. Mm-hmm. I would think it would be OKC. I would think Indiana should go in there with the house money, thinking no one thought we would be in the Game 7 against OKC, with Halliburton being banged up in the way that we played. So if I was Indiana, I would go in there and just let it all hang out, man. And if Indiana can jump on OKC early and get them down and make them play tight, then the Pacers can go in there and win. Now, it's not impossible, but guys, if I was betting, I want Indiana to win. But if I had to bet my hard-earned money, it would be hard for me to bet against OKC at home in the Game 7 based on what I've seen this year and in the playoffs.
With Sam Mitchell, I was watching I can't remember what show it was, debating, the best players in the game. And if Shea carries them here and has a big game in Game 7, does that mean he's the best player in the NBA? Where do you stand on Shea's ranking and what's on the line on Sunday night?
Well, he was the best player in the NBA this year. That's subjective every year. That's why they have an MVP every year.
Right.
So I don't think after 1 year you can say this guy's the best player in the NBA. I mean, guys, I can make an argument for the year that Joel Embiid the year he was MVP, he was better than the Joker best year. Because the things that he could do defensively that the Joker can't do and never will be able to do. Think about it. So we can make that argument, but for this year, yes, Shea has been the best player. He's been the MVP now. Is he a top 3, 4 player in the NBA? Absolutely. Guys, and I can make this statement without thinking and putting a lot of thought into it. He's probably the best guard in the NBA today.
Sammy, as soon as the final buzzer goes, the season seems to, shut down in its craziness as far as player transactions. Do you see that to be applicable this year?
Guys, I think so. I think what OKC has done and Indiana has done without these aging superstars, I think teams are going to try to unload their aging superstars. I really do. Think about it. The guys are aging. They're hard to coach. They're stuck in their ways. Think about coaching Indiana and OKC, how much fun that'll be. 2 young teams that are hungry, that are coachable. You know, think about some of the stuff that we've witnessed this year with players and coaches and things of that nature. It's just, to me, so refreshing to see two teams play, but yet two teams that allow their coaches to coach.
Yeah.
You know, they allow their coaches to coach without all these guys, my team and my guys. That stuff drives me crazy. But it's just been refreshing to me that the games have been about the team. Yes, Shea has been great. Jay Will has been great. But this has been two well-played this has been two NBA finals well-played by two highly, very good coach teams. I mean, both of these coaches are excellent coaches, but I would have to give a slight edge to Rick right now because he's doing it with with mirrors and tape, and I mean, he's just coaching his butt off.
Sam, before we get you out of here, I'd like to know, how's your short game, chipping and putting? Is it dialed in, or are you still working on it?
It sucked, man. My game sucked. It's been raining in Georgia for 3 weeks, so the courses are saturated. It's been extremely hot, and then I haven't touched my club in 3 weeks. I've been busy a lot, doing a lot of radio, a lot of TV stuff, and traveling a lot with the playoffs and stuff. And I tell you what, guys, I have enjoyed this finals because the games have been exciting. I think if it was two teams called the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers, people would be talking about how great a series it's been. But because it's Indiana OKC, for the people who are not watching, they did a disservice to themselves because this is some excellent basketball. Guys, when you take Shea had 8 turnovers, again, I get what you're saying, but Shea didn't have 8 turnovers. Indiana forced him into 8 turnovers. Think about the game Indiana won game 1, 25 turnovers. Didn't lead the game until 0.3 seconds left in the game. That's the only time they led the game. So, guys, we've had every scenario possible. Both teams could have closed these series out by now, if you think about it. Yep. So, Game 7, I hope it comes down to a 1 or 2 possession. That's what I want to see.
Well, that's what we're pulling for, too. We don't have a dog in the fight. Let's just have a great game Sunday night, and we'll take
y'all
it from
got
there.
a dog. You know y'all know y'all pulling for Shea.
We are.
Y'all got to pull for the Canadians.
Yeah.
Since again, no hockey team in Canada can win the cup.
Come on, man.
I had to stick it in.
Can't fight facts, man.
Let me twist it. Hold up, let me twist it. Not only can win the cup, y'all let a team from Florida. I mean, Florida, the Sunshine State. Dude, if you fill your pool up with ice in the morning, by 11 o'clock it done melted. It's so hot in Florida. So how the heck you play hockey in Florida and you can't play hockey in Canada?
It's a great question. That's why we're taking over the NBA. That's why we're taking over the NBA, Sam.
I love it. That's a good one, guys. Good comeback.
Great catching up with you, Sam. We'll do it again soon.
Anytime, guys.
There he is, Sam Mitchell.
He sounded like he was zooming through an airport on a Segway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Catching a flight
at high speed
to Oklahoma City with his clubs. He's probably lying about that. But listen, we got multiple Canadians on both teams, right? You got Shea, you got Lou Dort, you got Mathurin, you've got all these really, really good players who are really, really factoring into what's going on in the series, which is pretty amazing. Like multiple Canadians on both teams. Nembhard's been great. It's just been a great series for Canadians and Canadian basketball, and obviously Shea is the face of all that right now, like clearly. Right. All right, we'll come back and catch up with Matthew Shinetti. Our best bet still to come as well. Jays White Sox starting tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
My bad habits lead to late nights, sitting alone, conversations with a stranger I barely know, swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't.
Mail It In Friday brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. The PGA Tour rolling through Travelers. Justin Thomas sitting there at 9 under today. Scheffler at 9 under.
Did you take both of those guys?
I did not take Thomas.
No.
Thomas is my Spieth. Like your Spieth, you're like, I can't do it. Thomas, I'm like, I can't do it.
You know what? Spieth had to withdraw. I'll take Thomas.
Oh, of course. You know what? All right, you go ahead, and I'll. Did I take Tommy Fleetwood's at 9 under? Tommy Fleetwood's my boy. You know that.
You can
if I
have
play with a guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take Fleetwood. I don't know if you want Jason Day. Did I take Jason Day? I feel like I might have. But if not, maybe you could have him. You see the ladies are down in Texas, and it is so hot. I was watching them, wrap up their round last night, sweating profusely out there. It's 110 degrees in Texas.
Dude, why'd they pick that place for a major? It's that's down in Texas right now?
The Frisco, TPC Frisco or whatever, the PGA Championship's going there.
Outrageous.
In the future. And, yeah, you play in Texas in June? We just heard Sam, and Sam's trolling Canada and Canadians. But he's right. It is so hot in the southern United States. Yes. You get into June, July, August, it's absurd. How hot it is.
Can you imagine a U.S. Open in Alabama in June? Guys would be dying.
Arizona. Go to Arizona. It's 118 or 112.
Yeah, Arizona. A U.S. Open in June in Arizona. Guys would melt.
Yeah.
I was in Florida the other day, and you guys know me in the hot weather. It was gross. You went outside, it was like a punch in the face. And that was only 32, hot. 33. It wasn't 38 or 40, but it was hot.
Yeah.
That sun just beats down on you, and you had to wear a suit. It was not good that way. It was hot.
Well, now it's good to party. That's why the Panthers continue to party down there.
Yeah,
right?
They're enjoying themselves.
All right. Do we have Matthew Shinetti? We're calling up Matthew Shinetti here in a minute. Yeah, call him now, guys. That's what I'm saying. Call him in a minute, or call him now.
Or call him now.
Yeah, we want to get to Shinetti because we want to get to the bottom of what's going on with Gordon Ramsay.
I can't.
A.K.A. Jesse Marsh, the head coach
I wonder
of the men's national team.
I wonder if he's able to tell us the real story. Maybe it's too X-rated, as far as him swearing or something like that.
What's going on with his suspension? Is it just they just keep saying, "Oh, it's another game, it's another game"? Or
no, that's the thing. It's at this point he's serving the second of 2 tomorrow, and beyond that, I don't know. Yeah. I really don't know because we were joking about it earlier, the idea of him missing out on the World Cup, but and I couldn't imagine a scenario. Anything's possible where he would miss multiple games. And I don't think it's going to be that extreme. I can't see him in a situation where he's not going to be on the sidelines for the first game of the World Cup. But that's going to be one of the more incredible moments in the history of Canadian sports.
Yeah.
Ultimately, a men's World Cup with our men's national team playing. I believe it'll be at BMO Field. It could be in Vancouver. And it's going to be incredibly, it'll be a very proud moment. It'll be a very patriotic moment. And you want your whole squad available, including the head coach.
Yeah.
So, that's ultimately why he came here. When he took over, it was about building towards the next World Cup. We know what happened when they got to Qatar. It didn't go so well. It was very triumphant that they made it. But this time you want to put your foot forward and win. And the way that they've been playing recently would suggest that that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, they've played well. And I don't know, you just want some consistency there, too, and having him there. I don't know. I just I can't wait for Shinetti to at least fill us in and what could come down here with Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all right, we'll catch up with Shinetti here in a moment. Jays White Sox tonight, and I guess Scherzer's going to do like a bullpen kind of session this weekend at the Rogers Center, and
and he's ready to go on the road. No,
yeah, that would be my guess. Like he looked great the other night by all accounts. He's had multiple rehab starts in the minors, and I guess get up here, show it in front of Pete Walker and in front of John Schneider. They weren't capable of getting down there. Obviously, I'm sure, I know that the Blue Jays had a lot of people that would have been down there watching them. And, if all's good, man, that has the potential to be a massive insertion into your roster, into your rotation, if you can stay healthy. Right? Because you talk about a guy like DNA, and I know we're joking on that term. Like, he's got it. He's a winner. He's a Cy Young guy. He's a bulldog on the mound.
But he's got to be good, too. It's not
of course.
Just to say,
perform.
He threw a couple innings, he did a couple innings, and he's alive. It's like he's got to be good to be
obviously, that's the case. I mean, clearly that goes without saying. He's got to be able to perform. He's got to give you innings. He's got to strike guys out. But if that happens, it's almost a trade deadline acquisition before the trade deadline. If he can step in and pitch every fifth day and be anything close to what Max Scherzer has been in the past, it'll be a big addition. Dear Hazy B coming up in a few minutes. And best bet's a little bit later in the hour. Now, Canada back in action at the Gold Cup tomorrow. What is going on with Jesse Marsh? Noodles, you used the analogy of Gordon Ramsay.
Yes.
And I think it's a very appropriate one. Here's our TSN soccer reporter, Matthew Shinetti. What is the latest here with Jesse Marsh, and what could be happening with him in the future?
Well, hey, boys, we're going to find out, I think, in the next, probably by this weekend. The second of his two-match ban, which he got for being kicked off the sidelines in the CONCACAF Nations League back in March. He will finish that up after they face Curacao. But this whole situation that unfolded earlier this week on Tuesday in their first game of the Gold Cup against Honduras was certainly interesting, because sources have told me that this investigation that's now been started yet again by CONCACAF has a lot to do with, apparently, where Marsh was sitting, a place he shouldn't have been sitting. He was taken there by a CONCACAF official, and then his reactions to that official when he was told that he had to move. Now, this could potentially be problematic, because in the release when CONCACAF handed down the two-match ban, the final paragraph stipulates that in the event Marsh is, they say, sanctioned or punished again, they would account for the two-match ban and kind of see it as, this is a repeat offense, and they wouldn't go lightly on him. So Marsh was in front of the media today here in Houston. I was there, and I asked him the first question about what happened, what's going on. Could take us through what happened at BC Place, and he was very quick to de-escalate. And I think that is not only, I would say it's coming probably first from Canada Soccer, and secondly, I think it's coming from Marsh, because we don't want to get to a point, and if Noodles is using the analogy of Gordon Ramsay, I don't think Jesse Marsh wants to become a caricature of himself. And with as well as this team is playing, any further outbursts will start to draw attention away from the development that's clearly been happening over the last year with the Canadian men's national team, and will focus more on Marsh, and it might start to be deemed like antics.
So, from what you know of him, does he run hot? Like, does he have a reputation?
What kind of outburst are we talking here?
Here's the deal, boys. This is, if you've ever, all you need to do is Google Jesse Marsh and David Beckham, in which when Jesse Marsh was playing for Chivas USA many years ago, and David Beckham was playing for the LA Galaxy, Jesse Marsh two-footed David Beckham and really didn't care. That is who Jesse Marsh is to his core. He is super approachable. Everyone at the grassroots level of Canadian soccer who he has met, who I've spoken to, talk about how open he is and loves the game, loves talking about the game, loves teaching the game. But when we get close to match time, a different guy comes out. Now, he was on the Men in Blazers podcast earlier this week, and their host Roger Bennett, and I've heard this before. He's talked about being cool dad and psycho dad, and he chuckles when he says that the level of intensity that he gets when he gets to be that psycho dad, and I have seen it because I've been around him literally more than probably anybody else over the last year. And there is that intensity when he gets close to matches. But if you follow the timeline here of his interactions with CONCACAF, you could see from the Nations League to his comments after the Vancouver Whitecaps played at the CONCACAF Champions Cup and they lost, and he insinuated that there might have been some kind of poisoning that happened. He doesn't hold back when he wants to speak his mind. But the thing is this, Canada is a favorite to win this tournament. And irrespective of, and a lot of fans on social media have a lot of opinions about CONCACAF, which is the governing body of North, Central, and the Caribbean. And they are very adamant that, there's always, they look sideways at the idea that perhaps CONCACAF is in it against Canada. That is irrelevant. The Canadian men's team is very good. They're deep. I remember last year when we were talking before their second game in Kansas City against Peru about, scoring goals. Well, they're scoring a boatload of goals now. They've got talented players. And knowing Jesse Marsh as I do, I totally think that at this point, and he's also said this openly, he said it today, he doesn't want to make it about himself. But that's really going to come down to him because he still is that player inside. He still has that passion, that intensity, that drive. But he's got to learn to keep a cap on it because we're now less than a year out from the World Cup. And I know this for certain, wouldn't want to be a distraction. And the more questions and legitimate questions that we have to ask about this, the more the focus stays on him. But I also know, too, that intensity rubs off on his players. And I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow, given everything that's happened, irrespective of how hot it is in Houston, how hot it's going to be late in the afternoon tomorrow for them, I suspect just as they did against Honduras and that, the 6 goals they scored, they will be as offensive tomorrow against Curacao.
Yeah, it's tough to say I don't want the attention on, myself. Meanwhile, you're suspended and possibly facing another one during your suspension. I mean, it's I don't know. I've really appreciated Marsh's approach and how he's kind of, I think, stood up for Canada. I think he said a lot of things that a lot of Canadian soccer fans have really, really appreciated. He's an easy guy to like. The team's playing well. Gold Cup it's important. It's a tune-up. But like you mentioned, we're less than a year away from the real stuff. And I'm curious what you saw out of Honduras with a lineup that was not complete. Obviously the national team dealing with injuries and other things. What you might expect tomorrow that would suggest, this program is on the right path. And once we get to the World Cup next year, it will be time to actually win a game or two in the group stage.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is this. There are 3 things that Jesse Marsh wanted to do in the Gold Cup. One, and the attitude is part of it. He has been open about this, that he doesn't want his players to be timid. Now, he might have overreached in terms of, trying to be an example of those emotions, and I don't think anyone, especially those who are around him quite a bit, would doubt that. And I think maybe in a private moment he would probably acknowledge, too, okay, you know what, and he kind of did today, actually, in front of the media, saying, okay, you know what, focus more on the players. But obviously it's hard when there's an ongoing investigation into alleged actions that he may or may not have happened in that first game. But when you watch that game against Honduras, not only was the attitude there to be aggressive, to take charge, to keep the foot on the pedal, the goals were there. And to add that, the third point, the depth was there. And Canada wants to win this tournament. Canada, if they don't get to the final, and I don't, clip me, whatever you want, if they don't get to the final, it'll be a disappointment. Not a step back necessarily, but it will be a disappointment because, boys, the fact is this. Jesse Marsh, before he came to Canada, he was very close to signing with South Korea and being their national team head coach. And the reason that is because Jesse Marsh is very, very, invigorated by the idea of the 2002 World Cup and what he saw happen in South Korea when they went to the semifinals. And he sees the same potential here in Canada. Now, I'm not going to go on a limb and say Canada's getting to the semifinals of next year's World Cup. They do have to win. They have to score goals. They have to actually get results. They have to win, and they have to get out of their group. But you can start to see those things building right now. They're going to win tomorrow against Curacao. If they don't, it would be a massive shock. And they're going to score goals tomorrow. Then they're going to face El Salvador. And those who are keen-eyed Canadian soccer fans will remember a time when Honduras and El Salvador were the big banana peel. It wasn't necessarily the Americans or the Mexicans. It was how Canada would deal with El Salvador, how Canada would deal with Honduras. And when you watch that game against Honduras, save for maybe 2 moments when Honduras had half chances on Canada's net, and Dane St. Clair made a couple of saves. Canada was all over Honduras. And when you look at the couple of free kick opportunities they had, it should have been 7, 8, or 9 goals that they scored. So, it is quite hot here. Do I expect they're going to score that many goals tomorrow against Curacao and then in a couple of days' time against El Salvador? Not necessarily, because it's going to be late in the afternoon and there's a lot of heat and it's going to be a long tournament. But Canada, it really is focused on, and I've used this example already today. I was talking to somebody about this. If you want to know how much these players care, look at Jonathan David. Jonathan David doesn't have a club right now. Jonathan David is not signed anywhere. He is one of the best strikers around his age at 25 in Europe. And he now is looking for his next big move. Really, in any other sport, he'd be in saran wrap saying, you know what, I love playing for my country, and there's the World Cup next year, but I got to focus on making sure that I seal my club future because that's where he's going to make his money. Not only is Jonathan David here, Jonathan David's going to wear the captain's armband tomorrow. And that is an indication, irrespective of all of the attention on Marsh's emotions, that should show you how much these players have bought in. They believe that they can win the Gold Cup, and they believe they can go ahead in a year's time and go on a long run in the World Cup, because Jesse Marsh has stood in front of them and said, I believe in you, and then stood in front of the media and said, I'm going to go ahead and wear my heart on my sleeve for these guys.
With Matthew Shanadian, it's my understanding Alphonso Davies was around the team when they were in Vancouver.
Yes, he was. He was, and he's still recovering from his ACL injury.
Right, and where do things stand with him and Marsh in the program?
Well,
considering how it blew up a few months ago.
There have been a lot of bridges that have been not rebuilt, but there's that whole situation again was another example of just how much buy-in there was between Alphonso Davies and Jesse Marsh and the program. What happened there was very unfortunate, and I'm not I'm not going to correlate anything, but there have been some significant injuries that have happened under Jesse Marsh's time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything about his training. It doesn't necessarily mean it. There are no factors that you relate Jesse Marsh's coaching style, but they have had to go ahead and deal with the loss of Tajon Buchanan last year, the loss of Alphonso Davies, and now they've lost Sam Adekubi to a blown Achilles. And when I see that Alphonso Davies goes out of his way to come to see his team, to stand outside the locker room, which I was there, and make sure that he's interacting with his teammates, not only because he's a captain, that shows me that his relationship with Jesse Marsh is fine. His relationship with Canada Soccer is fine. Because in other situations, and those who follow European soccer and international soccer, who listen to the show, will doubtlessly know this. There are situations in international football where that doesn't happen, where there is so much tension between a head coach and a player, or a player and his international or his national association, that those things just don't play out. That you don't have the captain who's recovering from a major injury, who's trying to focus on getting back with his club team, again, where he makes all his money, that would take the time to go meet with his team, be out there, be visible, wanting to go ahead and interact. And that shows me, one, that Alphonso Davies takes being the captain of the Canadian men's national team seriously, and two, that overall the relationship is fine. But as we go forward here, how Marsh starts to manage all these personalities is going to be key, because there's competition for places. He has said it constantly. He said it to the team one of the first meetings he had with them when they met in Rotterdam last spring. It's 26 for 26, but only 11 guys can get on the field. And other players, the younger players who are coming in, like Jaden Nelson, who plays for the Vancouver Whitecaps, who's very eager to be a part of this team over the next year, has said it's going to be like the Hunger Games. So, yeah, everyone is bought in, but those tensions, the desire to fight for your place, the competition between guys, that's something else Marsh is going to have to manage. Because, yeah, it feels good right now when they're in a tournament that they absolutely should be considered favorites to win, and there's good feelings around the group, and these guys genuinely like each other. But the closer we get to the World Cup, I think it's going to be a bigger test for Marsh inside the room to manage those expectations, to manage those personalities, because there is depth on this team, but there are only so many spots. There's only 11 guys that can start on that first game at BMO Field on June 12th of next year, and Marsh is going to have to manage everybody's expectations, because he said it time and time again, I'm only going to field the best guys.
Shanetti, did you get my partsy Luke Wilson some Chuck Taylors for the sidelines, or are you coaching that guy up, or what?
You know what, dog? I was looking at his shoes, and beautiful, like immaculate shoes. And I said to him, you know what, man, I'm sure I can hook you up. The suit's nice, but we got to have a little more character. But he loves that stash, O-Dog, and the way that he
I don't know. What do you think of the stash? It's kind of, it's just, I don't know.
His thing, man.
It looks homemade, though. It looks like it's stuck on.
But that's his thing. And then he's got the little, he's got the, kind of mullet going.
Yeah.
But the thing
it's a scary look.
The thing about him, though, is he owns it. Like, that's the thing you got. I've said this to people. If you got a thing, you got to lean into it. That's why, at a time I had probably more chucks than I'm willing to admit. And he likes to walk around with a nice thick stash with, business in the front, party in the back. But, we're happy to have Wilson on the CFL and TSN, because you know what it brings is it brings an energy and a knowledge to the game, and frankly, an attitude and opinion that is refreshing to the Canadian Football League. And, you guys have seen on social media that sometimes he's going to go ahead and shoot from the hip. But you know what? It's coming from the right place. And this guy knows what he's talking about. And I can tell you, when we were there in Montreal a couple Fridays ago, the players were happy to see him, because there is that mutual respect. When a guy, and this is very true of not only the NFL, but definitely the CFL. If you're going to come hot with takes, you show up and you go ahead and you dab guys up and you're there, then guys will respect you. And I could see immediately how everyone eminently respected Luke. And it's good to have him part of the CFL and TSN team.
Well, he's at it tonight down at BMO. All right, Matt. Enjoy it, buddy, down there in Houston. And we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Take care, boys.
There he is, Matthew Shinetti, our TSN soccer reporter and insider, live with the Canadian national team ahead of another Gold Cup match tomorrow.
Did you watch the transaction with Beckham? I watched it while Shinetti.
No, I have.
He kicks him right in the side. Like, it's Astro from the bridge to get it. Like, it is. It's like a drop kick in the side.
You want
like
a piece?
Let's
go after it.
They are
right
nose
now,
to nose.
Whenever you're ready. All right, Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Jays in the over tonight. Jays in the over. I could see them winning big tonight. I think this feels like a sweep type of weekend. You don't want to get your skis up over the ledge, too much or too often. But White Sox in town. Jays have been red hot. Yeah. Jays in the over. Parlay that tonight. Best Bets powered by FanDuel. We'll come back with Dear Hazy B. We'll do that next.